Welcome to the Freeman Report. My name is Thomas Leager, and we are brought to you by Patriot Shit Outfitters, www.patriotshit.com. At checkout, use the promo code TFMR2022, and you will get 10% off and also help us build the Freeman Report, getting truth out there one little bit at a time. So we want to give a big shout out and thank you to Patriot Shit Outfitters. You guys have been awesome. And we are going to invite the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Jeremy Deeter. How you doing, Jeremy?
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm good.
I was talking about you.
I was looking for this man, myth, and legend. I wasn't sure where that was. I appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate the time that you put into doing this.
Yeah, no
and
problem,
I know it's going to take some time, a couple minutes here to get people into the chat. Yeah. We've tried to do a decent job of getting the word out as much as we can about broadcasting tonight. And I know that you put the link together a couple of days ago. So I appreciate the work you put towards this, man.
Yeah, man, no problem. I think we're plugging away here. We're making some progress. Yeah. So usually this is just for anybody who's going to be watching the show, regularly. We're going to usually give the first couple of minutes just to, let people, filter in and, do things, just do, kind of shoot the shit, get, settled in for everybody. And, I saw you were doing a little live. I saw you were doing a live stream before the broadcast here.
Yeah. There's an unfortunate rift right now where one of the pastors that a lot of patriots look towards is Pastor Greg Locke, and he very rightfully called out the Freemasons as a demonic organization, and naturally. What had happened was a lot of Masons that are also patriots that were also watching and listening to Pastor Greg Locke, said they had to step away from his church because they're Masons and they're Christians and they don't worship the devil. And, bridging that gap between those two truths that the pastor's right and what he said, that the Masonic organization is demonic. And the Freemason is also right when he says, I don't worship the devil. I'm a child of Christ. I'm a Christian. And so we need to be able to reconcile these two sides. That way there's not a further chasm put between us.
And I don't think for the most part, when we're talking about the Masons, I mean, your entry level Mason is not going to know about the stuff. And there are lodges that are completely devoid of any influence from the kind of I don't know how to say it, like the real deep down roots of from the Templars and all this satanic Enochian magic and stuff that goes on behind the scenes. They don't know about it because they don't get up to. I mean, if you have a lodge that's kind of just your local lodge, it's not very influential, they're probably not going to know anything about it. And they're going to feel very, very insulted by the inference. But once you get higher up there, that's when you really get into the meat and potatoes. And I think that's where the divide is. I mean, you have lower level guys who haven't seen any of this stuff. They really haven't. And I believe them. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And it also doesn't mean that it's in every lodge. And I think that's the truth that has to get across, is that there are, once you get into really influential lodges, like the ones in DC, like the ones, in areas that are very well-to-do, that's where you're going to see it more than you're going to see it in your local, Freemason lodges. I grew up in West Dallas, and, if you go to West Dallas, every single lamppost has the Masonic triangle, square and like the compass and everything, because every single light post was donated by the Freemasons. Every single. I mean, they were so intertwined with politics.
Well, and the city as a whole, not just on the political level. The Masons are the reason that you have building code, building inspectors, This honestly goes back to the false walls and the trap doors of the days of Boston, when
Mhm.
Britain was chasing after Freemasons such as Sam, um, John, all of them, really, all of them, Paul,
Yeah.
all of them. And, that's how they got away, was
Yeah.
false floors and things like this. So as they got control of the nation, they knew one way to successfully revolt was to have false floors and things like that. This is why Prohibition and the Italian mafia is known for those things, because it was a complete violation of building code and inspection and all of this, and they paid off the inspectors. And
Yeah.
this was one faction versus another. And real quick, Lewis Boyce says, "Greetings from occupied PA. Greetings from occupied Ohio." Calvin Robinson, thumbs up. Joe Axe, how are you, sir? Jessica Rudder says, "Hey." Chastity Knight, how are you? She says, "Hey, all." Joe Axe says, "Blue Lodge, don't know Jack." Vicky Schaffner says, "Howdy from Ohio."
Howdy,
Appreciate
everybody.
y'all being here. Appreciate everybody being here. And yeah, so this creates a chasm between a bunch of people that all profess Christianity, and that's not what we want, right? We want the body of Christ to be able to stand together as a whole. So this rift that's been built can be mended. It really can. You have to have the knowledge. So Albert Pike, who is known as a very famous Freemason, in his own writing talks about the privilege of knowledge of the higher ranking Masons that the lower ones do not know.
Yeah.
I mean, he talks about it openly,
Yeah.
and he's the one that talks about in the higher ranks, and he says it himself that you're worshiping Lucifer, and then he goes further
Yeah.
into how Lucifer was the one that was willing to sacrifice his eternity in heaven for you.
Which is the basic, I mean, that's basic Satanist doctrine. That's basic
Yes,
Satanist doctrine.
yes, it
And
is.
no, 100%. I agree with you 100% on that. Is that it's the rift can be healed if people just understand that there's a difference between the leadership of Freemasons and your average ordinary, street level Mason. And there's even, if you go to the Library of Congress, there are letters to George Washington in the Library of Congress where he discusses, where he's being warned about the Illuminati infiltrating Mason lodges in America, and that they should be shut down. And George Washington kind of poo-poos it, and he said, I'm not really worried about it. But in the end, they wanted to do away with them, and it just never materialized. In any real tangible way. But let's get into what we're here for, everybody. Michigan case. We all had a blow the other day, kind of a punch to the gut, with Caleb Franks. Caleb Franks had entered a guilty plea. And let me just bring up an article. We have two articles, one from the Detroit Free Press and the other one from a local news organization. So let's start with the Detroit Free Press. See this right here? This is a shoot house. What they're showing is a shoot house. I believe that. Oh, maybe I'm not in this one. What happens is you do runs through the shoot house, and pretty much we had targets on the outside because we didn't have enough wood and stuff to build a proper shoot house. So essentially we had the targets on the outside. You bust through the door, you kind of plink plink plink, and learn fluid, essentially like fluid dynamics, or there's a name for it. There's an official name where it's like how you infiltrate a room, like how you go into a room when it's to clear it, so that you don't shoot each other, you don't have any friendly fire, and you're also being really safe. And I mean, this is all stuff that's legal to do, but they definitely use these images in order to influence people's minds.
Yes. This is, and I want this to be clear here. They're taking pictures and video of militia, American militia, right? That isn't supposed to exist. And if they do, they're just supposed to be these country boys out in the woods, playing army. and this is what everybody's heard time and again. This is what they even say in the courts. And they show you pictures of militia, modern militia, doing what they're supposed to do, right? If your militia is your nation's last line of defense, and they know that to take that seriously, we have to know, yeah, of course, we have to know how to fight in the woods, but you're also going to have to know how to fight in buildings. And so they train for both of these things. So these are pictures literally of your militia doing exactly what they're supposed to do, right? And in the pictures and video, you see people with cameras shooting both video and taking still shots. And they do that so that they can go back and look at it and get their muscle memory perfect, so that when they're doing these motions, going from dropping out a magazine to reloading, grabbing the one off of your belt, which is a speed loader, and you take it and you jam it up in there, and then you make sure that it's good, and you clear the whatever the hell slide that is, and you make sure that the gun is operable, then you aim and you shoot again. This is exactly what they're supposed to do. They do not get paid to do this. They have to take out of their own time, their own pocket, and they have to take it seriously. So that's and they're not trying to hide it. They're not being secretive. They have their own pictures, their own video that they're shooting. This isn't something they're like clandestine, doing all secretively and da-da-da. So keep those things in mind.
I want to mention also, like, you're right. Everything was on our individual dime, our individual, like our expenses. We paid for gas, we paid for equipment, we paid for everything. And so when it comes to the stuff that the Detroit News listed, Robert Snell listed in his article, the propane tank, the shotgun shot or BBs or whatever you want, ball bearings or whatever you want to call them, the primers, the gunpowder, that was all because we were going to try to help. We were going to try to reload on a mass scale for our guys to be able to train. We wanted to be able to outfit more people to train because it was very expensive for ammunition. That is not illegal. None of that is illegal. So, and neither is training or a shoot house. So it looks like they're trying to kind of squeeze our stream down, but I hope I'm coming through all right. So pretty much Caleb Franks pled guilty. What was that?
You're coming through clear here.
Okay. So Caleb Franks pled guilty. And essentially he was another one that was very enamored with CHS informant Dan. And as was everybody in Dan's group. I don't call it Adam Fox's group. I call it Dan's group because Dan was the de facto leader. I mean, if you were going to go and ask somebody a question, you weren't going to Adam Fox. When he was in Cambria, nobody ever went to Adam Fox to ask Adam for permission or Adam a question. They all went to Dan.
And the FBI's own evidence substantiates that, as does the defense's, where they showed. What's that?
Except none of the evidence is allowed. I mean, the FBI has essentially banned any evidence.
Right. This is why they won't allow it, because it shows the FBI, the confidential informants, and the militia all referring to Adam as Captain Autism. Dan he's a war vet, and he used his position as a United States military member to impress these guys and show them, like, I really know what I'm talking about. I know how to do this. I know how to train. I know where you're, how you're supposed to wear your gear, and, where things are supposed to be. And, I can tell you what's official and what's real. And so they gravitated towards Dan. And that's what Thomas is saying, is that the leader of the Wolverine Watchmen all day, every day was Dan. They can say that it was Adam. They can call Barry Croft the leader of the 3%, which anybody who knows anything knows that's just insane. But Dan was the leader, and Dan was working for the FBI.
Yeah.
Dan was the same guy who showed everybody his herniated stomach, where you have a layer of muscle on your stomach. Everybody does. And what happens is it splits and the intestines come poking out. And that's what a hernia is. And he showed everybody his hernia, lied, and said that the VA, again, this is evidence they are not allowing into the court. They will not allow this. But he told all the guys that the VA would not get him surgery, would not give him surgery, which was also a lie. You know, so this guy used his veteran status, of which the FBI says he has severe PTSD, and used his hernia that he was choosing to live with as another source for something to lie about to gain sympathy. So he has the guy's sympathy. He has their allegiance. He has their trust. Caleb Franks is the
admiration. He has their admiration. And I want to add this as an addendum to what you're saying. Even Roby's guys, who Roby also was an informant. Roby also was a criminal. Roby also ran his own group. And that was a group that I was most familiar with because of all my days as organizing events. I would always bring Roby's group in after he had pretty much spent like a year trying to get me to even let him, you know, be in my circle because I didn't trust him at first. But once we did gain a little bit of trust there, after he bent over backwards, I would use his group as kind of like just a non-formal security where they kind of just looked around, they carried their guns, and just kind of did the perimeter and stuff. And what Roby was doing was he was essentially picking good patriots, had nothing to do with anything, out of the crowd as well, trying to pull them into things that would get them entrapped or arrested. Behind everybody's back. He was really good at compartmentalizing stuff. But even Roby's group, they said they wanted to train under Dan. They didn't want to train under Roby. They thought they had more respect for CHS Dan than they did for Roby. And so that shows like, so you have two leaders there, and both the leaders are Fed informants, federally, you know, paid informants who are doing the bidding of the federal government. They're the ones creating this plot. They're the ones setting everything up. All these training things were legit. But the thing is, what they would do is they would lure people with the legit reason of let's train together, let's learn how to defend ourselves, let's learn how to survive, which again is not illegal, and without any intention to do anything violent. And then he would entrap them and get them arrested or try to bring them into something, or he'd insert things that weren't supposed to be in there. Like with the Michigan thing, I was supposed to go to Michigan, and Roby wanted to pick me up at 3 a.m. And I just never ended up going because I fell asleep and I just didn't feel right about being picked up at 3 a.m. and going to Michigan. But there was no talk about any kidnapping. So if I would have went to Michigan, though, I'd be in the clink right now, and they'd say, "Oh, there was Caleb Franks, you know, his admission that says, oh, everybody agreed to this kidnapping." No, we didn't, because I was invited to Michigan, and I'd be sitting in the clink if I went, but I never agreed to anything no such thing, you know. And CHS Dan, he was the one who even brought, you know, he brought ammunition, he supplied guys with stuff, like he was literally giving them supplies. You know, and it was the feds that were like, you know, volunteering to give people C4 and all this other stuff, which if I had been there and heard that, I would have been like, okay, you're a freaking fed. But, you know, this is stuff that other guys have told me after the fact when it comes to the C4 thing. They were literally offering C4 to these guys. It's crazy. It's real crazy.
Well, and I'm sorry I had to pop outside.
I know, I saw all that.
Yeah, there's a cop sitting out here. They caught somebody with a stolen car on our street and didn't realize that our street was a dead end. So he caught him, and he's filling out his report. Remember this too, Caleb Franks is a young kid. He was also one of the young ones. And I want you to think about his strength for a second. All right. Those guys have been sitting in there longer than the January 6th people have been sitting in there.
Yep, they've been denied bail.
What's that?
Yep, they've been denied bail for 2 years. They're not flight risks. I mean, Barry doesn't even have a passport.
Right. And so for 2 years, this young kid, Caleb Franks, has been sitting in there, and they've been saying and putting together the evidence to show that this was entrapment. And then all of a sudden, and it shows him there quoted as this was an entrapment. Well, we all know what that was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so he's okay. So we also have to look at this. So Ty Garvin was the first one to fold. He was the youngest out of all of them, I believe. And the feds intimidated him to a point where he automatically he broke. Caleb held out for a while, but Caleb also had gun charges that were unrelated to this particular event that they were holding over his head. He had manufactured some firearms, and I believe they were unserialized. He had a prior criminal record, which I don't know what the charges were. I just heard that he had a prior criminal record, but he had other gun charges for manufacturing unserialized firearms and transferring them, which is a no-no. With or without a criminal record, selling unserialized firearms or homemade firearms without having some kind of serialization or some kind of number on the receiver, that's a no-no. So this was this whole thing about him selling the firearms. CHS Dan was the one that drove him to make these firearms and sell these firearms. So literally, the feds also have their hands in this, and so they're holding that over his head, and they're saying, well, you can fight this terrorism charge all you want, because even if you win this, you're still going to have these 2 gun charges, and we're going to put you in jail forever. And so they're using these gun charges to make him plead guilty. And he had been saying for a long time to everybody he could tell that he was going to accept a plea deal if they gave him a plea deal for the gun charges. So this is not a legitimate guilty plea. This is the FBI using their dirt to witness tamper. Because the thing is, whether they feel it is legitimate or not, they call anything the Patriots do witness tampering. I see this as the biggest witness tampering of all. You're making this guy plead guilty to something he didn't do because if he pleads guilty on this, he'll get a sweeter deal on something else. That's complete bullshit. And that has nothing to do and no bearing on the case. Like, there's no actual guilt here. They are just using their leverage to like with CM Phillips, that we know that they used him as an informant. We know that they used him against his will, and we know that he's being intimidated. And I'm sorry if that hurts, anybody's feelings, even CM, but we have to look at it like, look, we know that a lot of these confidential human sources have been manipulated into having to do the will of the FBI against their own will. They don't want to work with these people, but the thing is, nobody is without sin. Nobody is without sin. And so how the hell it's just, the thing is, they're using people's innocent mess ups to twist them into lying for the FBI. If you look, there's a book that says that, or a quote that says that every person commits 3 felonies a day, unaware that they're doing it. So if you commit 3 felonies a day, unaware that you're doing it, the FBI is using those 3 felonies to try to twist you into working for them, because they know that the law is so complicated that you could never know every single thing. And so they're looking for dirt on anybody, and they will expose it and then use it to bend you to their will.
And what I really want people to know is that Caleb Franks held out for 2 years where he did everything he could. And all of the guys feel like they cannot get a fair trial, that is not going to happen, that when the defense, when their lawyers have filed all of these motions and all of them have been denied, and the judge will not allow the jury to know that the lead investigator, whose signature is the reason for this investigation, has since been fired for beating his wife, driving drunk, the whole bit, you know, and they're not going to know any of that. They're not going to know that the other two lead investigators also were, all of them were granted immunity from their own case.
Yep.
Do you get what we're saying here? That they were actually granted immunity from their own case. If that doesn't tell you
And
everything.
none of them are testifying. None of them are
No,
testifying.
they can't. First of all, they were recused from the case from testifying. Then they were granted actual immunity and do not have to testify at all on their own case.
And then they barred all the evidence showing why they were barred from their own case. So they can't even bring up the malfeasance, the massive malfeasance on the FBI's part into the court case. These guys are being railroaded. And the thing is, if we don't stand up for them, if we don't stand up for these guys, if these guys go down for this, it's going to be every single militia. They're going to call militia gang activity. And that's the biggest thing. They are going to come after every single one of us. Look at what the ATF's doing. Look at the what the DHS just put out with the national terrorism statement, where they said anybody putting out miss, or malinformation is now a terrorist in their eyes. They are using the Patriot Act. It's called Patriot because it was meant to come after the Patriots. We are law-loving, peace-loving people that just want our country back, and every move we make, they're trying to criminalize us.
So what he's talking about is the Department of Homeland Security released a National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin. If you go to dhs.gov, you'll be able to find where it says, our nation remains at a heightened threat environment status. A heightened threat environment status. And the reason that they go into immediately is what he just said. Because of false or misleading narratives. What? Hold on now. They just said we're at a heightened threat environment status, and it's because of false or misleading narratives introduced or amplified by domestic threat actors. So they say things in such an ambiguous way as to make sure that anybody they want to be able to be in trouble will be or can be. They make sure of it. So, because what is a domestic threat actor? What is that? Is that somebody in Hollywood? Is that an actor in Hollywood? Is that what that is? Is that what that means? So this is only for people who have been to acting school. Or is it absolutely everybody that they want it to be? Again, they said that we remain at a heightened threat environment status because of false or misleading narratives introduced or amplified by domestic threat actors. And so what they're saying is that they're at a heightened threat level because of words, because of narratives that they don't like. They say that these are narratives that they don't like because they go against government. Well, this nation was founded out of the idea and principles that government becomes tyrannical, that government extends itself beyond its own authority, that this is the nature of humans, and that people are what makes up the sitting bodies of governance. And so governing bodies are really never to be trusted, that the governing body is no more than people that are fallible. And that's what we were born out of. So the day that you start to make these things illegal and you start to use wording such as this at a national, for a national terrorism advisory system bulletin, saying that, you know, the people that speak out against us are a threat. Well, they're being honest. We are a threat. We absolutely are. And so who are we a threat to, right? Because what we've done is espoused the national founding principle and said that we come from rebels, we come from revolutionaries, people that didn't trust government, people that knew better than to trust government, people that gave all kinds of warning, and then a pathway for Americans to be able to rise against government Americans rising against the American government, making sure that the Second Amendment wasn't for hunting. It was for putting hot lead in the heads of traitorous government, that we would be able to free ourselves. And they gave us about every way. And now when it's an open and blatant complaint that says, and it's more than a complaint, but where it says, anybody who complains about government, well, they're whining because they know that they are the traitors. They know what they've done.
And this is the thing. The thing is, our founders, they went to hot lead and they gave us the right to do that with the Second Amendment. But the thing is, we have been trying to exhaust every single peaceful resource that we can possibly find. And every single time we're met with infiltration, obfuscation, lies, misinformation. We have been called all sorts of names. We've been called racist. We have been called this, that, and the other thing. And we've tried every single peaceful means. We don't want to have to fall back on the Second Amendment. And they're trying to make it so that we have no Second Amendment to fall back on as well. Look at what the ATF is doing. They're changing they're using rulemaking to change definitions inside of a law that's already passed, outside the legislature, outside the judiciary. So now they can just change things to make the law mean whatever they want, go after whoever they want. This on top of the DHS bulletin.
The ATF gave themselves permission to redefine words as they see fit. And now they've started to arrest more Americans that have guns and teach people about guns and their Second Amendment right. And this is only the action of traitors. Only traitors would do that. Only traitors would even think about that. Everybody knows what they're seeing. Everybody knows it's right in front of their face. Everybody knows what this is. Now, I want to take everybody back. Okay. The reason why we're talking about Michigan and the guys in Michigan is because these guys and myself had a meeting. And I'd like to remind everybody that it was not the U.S. Patriot. It was not the U.S. Republican. It was not the U.S. Militia that went out and caused over. Now, I just found out recently that the estimated $2 billion with a B, $2 billion of damage that was done by BLM and Antifa is only at $2 billion because that's the max that insurance companies would pay. And when we know that there are parts of like Ferguson, Missouri and other places that have not recovered and will not recover in the foreseeable future, we can estimate that it's more than 2 billion, right? And let's also discuss that I believe somewhere around 24 to 25, 26 people were killed. Mostly black people were killed by BLM and Antifa when they were having their summer of love and destroying cities. Again, these were not patriots, but we are labeled the domestic terrorists. We are the ones, so you see what's happened here. It's obvious, it's plain, it's right in front of your eyes. Nobody needs to explain it. This is the traitorism. This is the betrayal of the American people by Americans that are sitting in very powerful seats, and they've betrayed us. And that's why they have to take the American patriot and label them as a domestic terrorist, white supremacist. That way patriots no longer exist. But do not forget that these guys that are in jail, they were sitting around and asking each other, okay, as patriots, what do we do about this situation? And that's where all of this started. All of this started because there were Americans that were willing to sit around a round table type setting, giving everybody equal time to say, okay, in our state, this is what we think will work. In our state, we're looking for suggestions because this is what we've tried, and have an open dialogue about what it is that the Patriot movement could or should do while we're watching cities be ransacked.
Yeah.
And that's how all of this started. So remember the context, and remember that our guys are all locked up for things they said. Right? Things they said. And if you look at the DHS, this report right here from the National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin, they're talking about the freedom of speech. They said the narrative is the reason they're at a heightened threat status, is because of the narrative, because there's a narrative being pushed of misinformation. Well, these traitors can't stand the fact that people would tell truth, so they're going full Nazi, they're going full Stalin, they're going full Mussolini, they're going full Pol Pot. They think they have the political potential to be able to put all of us in chains. Now, Caleb Franks is sitting there and for 2 years fought against this, saying, no, we've been entrapped. He helped to gather the evidence. He helped to tell his lawyers, this is who you get a hold of. This is who's going to have messages on their phones. This is who's going to have the conversations recorded. This is, by text message or whatever. And, he does all of this work to see from behind a jail cell, to see that all of the motions are denied, that the prosecution, their motions have been approved, that they're going to bring in the criminal history of these guys. Has nothing to do with this
history of the FBI. Yeah, they're going to bring in their criminal history of the guys, but not the criminal history of the FBI. That's pretty freaking convenient, don't you think?
And none of them beat their wives, and you can see the blood on the body cam footage on the bed right where she said he hit her head, and then she turned around and bled onto the bed sheet, right? So all the evidence is there, her testimony, right? And then finding him behind the wheel of his vehicle with the vehicle on, and he's drunk, man. This guy's 40 sheets to the wind. Yeah. And our guys did none of that and nothing like that. They're guilty for words they said. They didn't go and destroy cities, right? They're guilty for words they said. And they're not guilty for hatching this plan at all, because the FBI, even though they won't admit the evidence, they also, in doing so, are under no obligation to show that this was their plan.
Yep.
That they're the ones that came up with it. And they're pretty sure that if the defense can bring it up in court, that they can still defend against it and say, yeah, we did bring it up 3 times, and every time those guys said no. They said, no, we don't want to do that. No, we don't have any interest. Remember that our guys are guilty for what they said, not for anything they did. They didn't beat their wives. They didn't, they didn't drive drunk. They didn't do any of these things.
And they didn't even go to they didn't know, the guys that were legitimately at the Michigan FTX to train, they had no idea where they were going up until they got to this bridge, and the informants and FBI agents said, oh, well, that's Whitmer's house right there. And so that they literally had to force them into a situation of planning to kidnap the governor. I mean, multiple times Adam rebuffed it, multiple times Barry rebuffed it. And, just because you catch them in an instant of weakness where they're saying, where they're speaking their frustration.
It was a setup. It was a setup because they said no, that they didn't want to do this, and they didn't want to do a drive-by shooting of her house. The feds were supposed to take them to Gretchen Whitmer's house that night, knew that there was no way that the guys were going to go for that. So they drove up impromptu not impromptu, just impromptu for our guys. They didn't know that they were pulling up on the other side of the lake where the FBI guys could say, well, that's her house over there. And then at that point, our guys felt free to even make jokes, about, well, you take the bitch and you put her on a boat and you take her to the island in the middle. And you know what I mean? Because they were sitting there. At that point, it was unattainable. It was unreachable. It wasn't anything that could actually be done. None of them had a boat. None of them had the ability to do any damn thing. They're all the way across on the other side of the water, and they start to sit there and joke and, just do what guys would do, like, fuck that bitch, her, blah, 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 and I'd like to take her and put her on an evidence table and, show her as the evidence. And that's what they're using against them. That's what happened.
And not just that, but it's like in a lot of in one of the meetings, there was a literal riot going on where they're destroying the cities. And can you blame somebody for expressing their frustration while they're watching their cities burn? And
that totally happened. So we had all that militia leadership here in Dublin, Ohio at the meeting. The meeting was over. before the sun went down, I'm pretty sure. And yeah. And so that was it, right? Well, Columbus, the city of Columbus, is just 15 minutes away from where that hotel is. So all of those people that were here from out of state decided to go downtown Columbus and stand where the National Guard was and start to walk down High Street that way and watch the BLM and Antifers throw rocks and stuff and bricks that were on the side of the street conspicuously for no damn reason. There was no construction happening. And then behind the bricks were bottles of water and like snacks. Not kidding. So they saw all of that. They saw all of that. They were here for all of that. They talked to the National Guard. The National Guard said they weren't even armed, that they showed up unarmed.
Well, a lot of them showed up with.
It was amazing.
A lot of them,
but I just wanted to reiterate your point that they did see that with their own eyes that night, the night of the meeting. So if they wanted to be extremists, they could have done it that night.
A lot of the National Guard showed up with their guns, but the governors told them they were not allowed to have magazines in their guns. And you have Impala, who was caught perjuring himself before. You have Jason Chambers, who was running a private cyber intelligence agency, probably to get around warrants, to be honest. But as soon as he got found out, he deleted all of his information connecting him to it. And his friend Jamie Chinaga, which I'm pretty sure is still, pretty deep into this. You have Trask, Obita's wife. And not just that, but there was direct federal help to Antifa while they were burning cities. They had drones flying over the place. They could have helped the local police, but the feds did not. Steve Roby actually approached a man with a satellite phone in one of the riots in Madison. And it was like he knew the guy. It was like he knew this guy from way back. And all of a sudden he approaches this guy and talks to him and is like trying to get us to be friendly with this guy who's essentially looks like he's standing at the Capitol steps directing everything through his satellite phone. The federal government, along with the DNC of Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota, all were in on this. Not to mention J.B. Pritzker gave public funds to BLM to invade other states. Gretchen Whitmer admitted she knew about this quote-unquote plot for 3 months. That means she knew it was entrapment, because in those 3 months, there was no real plot that ever took shape. It just doesn't make any sense.
At the very least, the governor needs to be a big part of this investigation that goes into how it is the FBI was able to commit all of this criminality and never once be held accountable. Then you start to look at the judge who has disallowed all of the defense motions that show the crimes by FBI agents. There's internal documents and emails between the defense and the prosecution where the defense is like, look, dude, we're going to bring this up in court and this is a crime. Like, how do you want me to proceed with this? You're the prosecutor's office. You would have to prosecute this, to which all motions were denied. And that was the answer they got. So our guys, and when you look at this guy's face here, Caleb Franks, I want you to know that this guy is strong. He held out for 2 years, and then he saw that there was no chance that he was going to get a fair trial. There was no chance, and he's looking at life, and he's looking at life on another charge, and he's looking at 20 years on another charge. The guy looked at his situation, saw that he was right, that when he stood up against an overbearing, overreaching, tyrannical government, he was right to do so. That when he stood against Gretchen Whitmer, that he was right. Later on, while these guys got locked up, the Supreme Court said that she didn't have the constitutional authority to wield the power that she was wielding. And they stopped her.
They were right. Yeah, they were
He
right.
was right.
to try to citizens arrest the governor using sheriffs, which is a legitimate thing, which they were the guys were searching to do. They were never looking to kidnap her. They wanted to find a police enforcement agency like a sheriff that was willing to legally and lawfully execute a warrant on Whitmer for exercising illegal powers, which we find out later on she was exercising illegal powers. And for her to admit that she knew about this for 3 months, like this is a big scam on us, guys. This kid should be a fucking hero.
Yeah, she also volunteered her property. Yeah. And they were able to set up cameras that way they could get footage evidence, video evidence of our guys at the governor's mansion that she was, or summer home or cottage or whatever it is, that she wasn't actually going to be at. And so she's in on this, you know. Well, Caleb Franks saw, this guy right here saw that he was right to stand and be a patriot. And he saw that there was no chance that he was or the other guys were going to get a fair trial. He knows that he's a young man, and he said, fine, I give. What do you want me to say? And think about what you have to believe here, right? Either A, you have to believe that somebody for 2 years has helped to substantiate a case of entrapment and showing straight criminality by the FBI that has in turn helped to get one guy fired and 2 of them taken off of the case and recused immediately, then later given immunity because of what this man in part was able to help produce as evidence, and then saw that the judge denied it and just, you know, at that point said, okay, fine, I admit it. It was something we planned the whole time. You guys are right. You know, that he all of a sudden, 30 days out from the trial, just got a guilty conscience. We know what happens in these trials. Guys, especially young guys, get scared. They see their life pass before their eyes. They've already been intimidated by the FBI and the indictment. He held out for 2 years. And then it wasn't until he saw proof and evidence in front of him that he had 0 chance of getting a fair trial. And that's when he buckled and said, fine, all right, whatever you guys want me to say, whatever you guys want me to do. Yeah, we planned the whole thing, and you know, it wasn't entrapment after all. You know, you either have to believe that he got a guilty conscience 30 days out after all of the defense motions were just told no, while the prosecution motions were all told yes, or that this is just like every other case, and he saw 30 days. He waited until 30 days, until the last possible minute, and then said, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not going to sit in here for life because you guys want to make shit up. I was a patriot for a reason. And yes, he's turned state's evidence, right? That's what they say, that you know, now he's a snitch for the state or whatever. Let me tell you something. When it comes to this case, Thomas and I have never felt that way towards now this gentleman or the gentleman before him, Ty Garbin. All right? That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've never felt that way. We from the beginning knew that the FBI has been intimidating their own confidential informants. They've been guilty in other cases before this one, then guilty in this case of the same crimes: witness tampering, witness intimidation, evidence tampering. You know what I mean? They don't stop because they're never held accountable. They're just given immunity and recused from the case. This is the same FBI that said Adam Fox was the leader, while in their own internal communications where they're trying to entrap our guys, all of them are calling Adam Captain Autism. Yeah. Making fun of Adam because, now listen, are they going to look at that guy as their leader, do you think, Captain Autism? Or the guy who is claiming to be one of them, who they know is a Vietnam vet, that is pretending to be one of them? You know what I mean? This is obvious that the FBI has lied from beginning to end, and they haven't stopped. And this guy right here, Caleb Franks, he finally threw his hands up. We do not hate him for that. We know that for 2 years he's had to endure, and that he doesn't like this decision either. that none of them wanted this. You have to figure, ladies and gentlemen, once again, these guys are locked up for words they said, not crimes they committed. Words they said that have since been twisted by the writers of these articles and by prosecutors and judges. And now they see they cannot get a fair trial.
They've rigged the game. They see the game is rigged. And let's look at this. So these guys are facing Amanda, who is the girlfriend of Adam Fox. It's saying they said they threatened her with 25 to life in front of her own lawyer. They think they can do whatever they want. And so let's look. Look at the Waukesha Christmas parade killer. Have we heard anything about him? Have we heard anything about him? Has he been offered life? I don't think so. I guarantee you he's going to get a sweetheart deal because he is essentially one of theirs. He's been radicalized to the left by all the mainstream media, and the mainstream media doesn't want to be held accountable. The FBI doesn't want to be held accountable, so they're not going to hold this guy accountable. They've held nobody from the BLM riots accountable. I mean, maybe they're holding them accountable for their funds now, but that's the least they can do at the end of the day. Now these guys are being made out to be the Oklahoma bomber when they have done nothing but speak words. When you have BLM who literally made Molotov cocktails on the Madison, Wisconsin Capitol Square, and we have to get people reporting on this, the mainstream media for our side, which is Steve Bannon's War Room, which is Revolver News, which is InfoWars, which is Gateway Pundit, which is Free Thought Project. All these guys have to step up, grow a set of balls, and start talking about this because these guys are going to be railroaded, and it's not just to their detriment. It is the detriment of every American because we have the right to train together. But if these guys go down, militia will be made illegal. The militia will be made illegal. That is wrong. That is wrong. It's in the Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That means,
and if you guys think that that's exaggeration, if you think that that's hyperbole, then what I want you to do is I want you to look up all of the guys who have been charged. I want you to look up the state charges, and I want you to look up the federal charges. And what you're going to find is that on both, they were so slick about this. They've kept this out of the news because of the implications. Yes, it sends these guys to jail for a very long time, or prison rather. Yes, it does. Absolutely. It hurts the patriot movement again, right? Okay. Yes, absolutely it does. It goes so far beyond that. This is not the Bundy trials. That's why they've stayed quiet. This isn't the Malner trials. That's why they've stayed quiet. This isn't Las Vegas. If these men are found guilty, and it looks like at least 2 of them on the federal level will be, what you have now is, if these other guys are not found innocent in the same case by a jury, then being in the militia, you now have case precedents that shows that is gang activity and is also domestic terrorism activity. Period. End of story. You cannot deny it. Look at the charges. It takes away your constitutional right to peacefully assemble. It takes away your constitutional right to train as militia. That's why they're showing pictures of nothing more, not people building bombs, not people with like blueprints and then it has like a picture of the governor or something like that. No, doing regular, normal training that militia is supposed to do. They have to bastardize it from beginning to end. They have to show from beginning to end that being in the militia is a crime. And they're going to use this case to make sure that on the state and federal level, if you're militia and anybody at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, doesn't matter who. If there's a picture of you that exists on social media and you've got the camo and you've got the guns and you're taking a picture at the State House, you are now under federal domestic terrorism and counterterrorism investigation. Period. And, they have just now made you a federalized citizen for doing no more than exercising your constitutional rights.
And alongside, we want a fair trial. We have to demand a fair trial. But also, the one thing that the feds have going for them is that federal trials are not televised. And I know that there's state charges and federal charges on these guys, and I don't know if that's going to be televised or not, but it should be. every trial like this that they have been propping up as some kind of terrorist plot needs to be televised, and people need to be able to weigh in and say, look, these guys are not anything what we were told they are, and they need to go free.
Yeah, we're in a position now where they will have case presidents to end all militia presence in the nation. This will not stay within the jurisdiction of Michigan. Oregon, Arizona, California, Washington, New York, not that they needed it. Everybody, anybody, they can all say, well, this isn't just case presidents out of Michigan on the state level. These pictures and video that we have of you as a participating militia member now on the federal level as well mean that this is domestic terrorism. And we have the cases right here. And we have 2 people that have already pled guilty. This is the erasing of militia as America knows it. And what a wonderful job they have done to keep it quiet from all of you, from everybody, to make sure that this happens under where they're think about how disastrous this whole case has gone for them, right? To the point where the judge has had to cover every single one of their tracks, to the point where the governor, I believe, is the one that requested immunity for all agents and all confidential informants concerning this case. You have got to be kidding me. Immunity from their own case. This is NDAA. This is Freedom Act via, Patriot Act. This is the unconstitutionality of arresting patriots who did not commit crimes, who spoke words, and they're using this case because they don't care. They can just be as criminal as they want to be. There's no one to hold them accountable, and no one's talking about it because we've lost our media. So this will happen quietly, and this will be the end of militia. And people don't realize it.
If they get this through, think about if we try to do a trucker convoy in America. They're going to be immediately considered terrorists. Immediately.
Straight up.
Not in a day, not in a week, not in a month. Immediately, as soon as they try to do anything in Washington, D.C. or in anywhere, they're going to be considered terrorists.
And
not
then
just that, but there were
feds. Go ahead.
There were feds that literally dressed up as construction workers to raid a Republican politician's office in the Capitol. They literally dressed, and there is a civil war going on, folks. This is not a joke. This is not exaggeration. This is not hyperbole. This is not anything out of this is what's happening. The thing is, we would never be able to get away with what the truckers have gotten away with because the truckers just happen to take advantage of a moment of weakness in Canada because Canada has been so placated for so long that they never expected anybody to stand up. And so they kind of hit a blind spot of the Canadian government. But us, we've been fighting since the beginning. And we have been targeted. They are making us criminals. The DOJ has said that people who stand up at student school conferences, they're terrorists. People who stand up at their capital, they're terrorists. Anything that opposes the mainstream media, that opposes the mainstream narrative, that opposes the people in charge, the establishment, they don't want us to be there. And they are all too willing to put us in prison as long as they can find a way. That's why they're trying to virulently trying to find a way and so maliciously trying to ruin people's lives, like this kid Caleb Franks who fought 2 years as best he could, and then they held over the gun charges and they said, well, you might get off on the terrorism charge, but you're definitely not getting off on the gun charge. Might as well plead guilty, because they're trying to railroad Barry Croft. They're trying to railroad Adam Fox. They're trying to railroad Adam Caserta, who, if he's an anarchist, so be it. I don't care. As long as he believes in the Constitution, which he seemed to the one time I met him, then, that's what matters. Our own government does not believe in the Constitution. Our own government does not believe in the Constitution. That is the problem. We need to understand that the people sitting in office, the people occupying office, are not on board with your rights. They want nothing but to get rid of them. And we have to understand that by looking at the actions of the federal government since Joseph Robinette Biden took office. Since he took office, there has been nothing but a belligerent federal government, and we have been pleading to our states to protect us, and they will do nothing. They will stand down and they will allow us to be raped by the federal government. The federal government's charter is null and void at this point. They have been nothing but a harassing, occupying force that is infiltrating good-intentioned patriot groups and calling us kooks and calling us crazies and all this other stuff. But the thing is, we had legitimate intentions from the beginning. But they wanted to make sure that our intentions were misportrayed, misconstrued, misrepresented to the public, and they loved it. That, you know, all these guys that were for the Michigan case stayed silent. They had no way to contact the media. They had no way to contact the general public. And so, except for Barry Croft, who took his own life in his hands to come on this show to do an interview, these guys have no voice. And so the media can portray them as anything they want. They have a blank canvas. All they need is the picture of the person, and they can paint everything about the person's life. It's so infuriating.
Yeah,
sorry on that rant.
No, you're good, brother. You're good. Paul Riley says that is our enemies. That's what they do. They are experts in subversion. Blue Ridge says these men acted lawfully. Unfortunately, they've been tangled in the legal mess. And I added a few words there. Joel Martin says they've been making the lawful into criminals according to their unlawful rules. And I think that's one of the best ways to explain it. We live in a time where right now, as we sit here, there are on your dole, okay, by your wealth, by your hard work, by the sweat of your brow, there are Hunter Biden inspired crack pipes and heroin needles that are being put together in kits to be given to our marginalized parts of society, the parts that need more equity, the minority parts of our society. This is brown and black folks that our Democrat president is going to give crack pipes to via your wealth. And this is just but an example of what these guys were meeting and fighting against, is this type of behavior. No wonder they thought that, all of us thought that it was a good time for us to get together and say, you know, what kind of country do we want this to be? You have to figure Barry Croft and them were coming together on putting together a school for children that was going to be constitutionally based. You know, it was going to be rooted in the principles of the Constitution and real education and, making them competitive. And if you guys have been watching the convoy up there that Thomas was talking about, then you may have seen where the authorities, and there was a reporter that was mirroring what a Canadian politician had said, that, these truckers, they're out there with their families, and they set up these areas for kids to play. And the reporter talked about their kids should be taken from them. The Chinese took many babies and children from their parents. The Russians did that. The Italians did that. The Ottomans went through that. The Assyrians, if you want to go way back. This has been done throughout human history. Just the mere suggestion of it is so bad that, and I'm sure this person doesn't have the education to know that, which is also frightening. But the mere suggestion of it is evil. And these folks do not understand that this of totalitarianism, where you tell government should take their kids from them, You have no idea the evil that you're inviting into everybody's lives. This case will also be used as a pathway for January 6th. It has all the high notoriety that they need, and they're going to use it. The fact that the DC police went into a Republican's office is bad enough, right? When he wasn't there, and then they went back later and started interrogating his staff. But the fact that it was the secret DC police and that they were dressed as construction workers and then took pictures of his dry erase board and then left and then came back and asked his staff about what was on the dry erase board. This is all very scary. You are treading into very communist, very fascist, like Thomas said, it's a very Civil War type of posture and position. This is internal warfare taking place, and they expect that the American people will not fight back. And I know that they're sadly mistaken. I know that they are. And I believe it's incredibly dangerous to poke such a bear, but that's a broadcast for another time. When you look at why the guys got together, why it was that patriots from around the different states all decided, we should have a conference, we should have a meeting, we should get together and just talk about what's going on in the nation. They didn't know that the FBI at that point had enacted an operation called
Cold Snap.
Cold Snap. Thank you. Operation Cold Snap. Because we were getting ready to go into the spring, but it was still cold, cold enough. And they were doing this operation with National Guard help. They shut down an entire 6-story hotel to use it under the United States Patriot Act to use it for the federal government. And they had the National Guard go upstairs to the 6th floor, put their communication base there. And every single one of our motions, every single one of our actions were under 24. They were under every second was under surveillance. Every word that we uttered, didn't matter where it was. It could have been the bathroom, could have been poolside. If I was just sitting there talking to Lisa, just having a conversation, they were hearing everything. They were listening to everything. They were violating all Fourth Amendment rights. They were pretending as if this was Nazi Germany, and they could just play with their toys. And it doesn't matter that we're patriots when they look at us. It doesn't matter that they were told as counterterrorism experts that you guys are getting ready to investigate a bunch of terrorists. And when they showed up and they started to look at the analysts' reports, and they started to see that it didn't add up, that these look like and sound like moms and dads, not terrorists. Unfortunately, a large enough portion of them stayed with the narrative they were given by their bosses, and they had to convince themselves that they were doing the right thing somehow. So now we have a bunch of FBI agents that are deluding themselves in order to arrest United States patriots and investigate United States patriots. And this is what's happening, period. They can label us for damn sure whatever they want, but everyone and their mama knows it's a lie. It's just a lie, and it's a stupid lie for these people to try to keep up. Tonight, as we're having this broadcast, we know that whether they're watching right now or not, that we've caught the attention, and we know that regularly people watch that are in media, that are working for the federal government in different capacities, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, private investigators. We have hopefully Julie Kelly, and people around her listening, people with BuzzFeed listening, and they're watching your guys' conversation along with the FBI. This is the most watched, unwatched video on YouTube, right? There are more secretive eyes in people that will be watching later than what we'll ever know on this broadcast, just because of the content and who we are and what we're talking about and all of that.
And I want to say this. I want to say the reason that Jeremy and I are free and that we're able to tell these truths is simply by the grace of God. Literally the grace of God. There is nothing else that I can attribute my being free to than the grace of God. And I've had people, attack me and say, "Well, you're not arrested." Just like we talked to Stephen Roby, and we're like, "Why aren't you arrested? Why aren't you in jail?" And that's kind of how we came to the conclusion that he was a Fed. People have come after us and said, "Why aren't you in jail? We don't understand it. You should have a lawyer. You should do this. You should do that." The thing is, first off, we're too poor to have a lawyer. I mean, even if we were being invested, even if we were aware of active investigations against us, we wouldn't have the means to even do that. Second off, it is only by the grace of God that we were not tied into this. I was supposed to go to Michigan. I could have been in this just as easy as anybody else. I just happened to have a gut feeling, and I've trusted my gut, and God's guided me to a place where it's like, I'm sure. But the thing is, I'm sure that one day I will find myself in a courtroom defending myself against these tyrants. I have no doubt. But at this point, it's because of the grace of God that we have not had to get lawyers at this point or been arrested. And I think that's because God's in control of everything. And that's just my explanation of my understanding of why we're here telling you the truth when nobody else will.
Yeah, I was told that because this was, naturally a question that we had. We're watching all these people around us get arrested, especially at first, and we're just like, okay, are they going to arrest me now? Like everyone's thinking, like they're
We
probably
were
going to
waiting
come for
for
me.
it.
Because they just arrested a bunch of people that I know, and then you start to wonder, like, okay, were the people that I know, were they involved in something I didn't know about? Like what is going on? And then as everything starts to come out and you start to have conversations, I was just told they said I wasn't arrested because I'm not an idiot. That's what I was told, and I take that to mean that when I speak, I mean what I say. Like obviously I'm not espousing a position of like, let's be terrorists. That's dumb. That's stupid. So
And not
you
even
know,
being able to be
it's
led
just
to a
easy,
point where
simple.
we the thing is, I've known you for a while, Jeremy, and you speak deliberately and
Yeah.
deliberately in a way that covers your own butt, and that's just the way patriots have to speak. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is that we both talk in a way that's trying to cover our own butt, because we know that they will try to get us on anything they can get. That doesn't mean that
Oh,
Barry and
yeah.
all these other guys wanted terrorist activity. It just
Yeah.
means that they were looser with their vocabulary than we are.
Yeah, so again, these guys are locked up for things that they said, and so no matter what articles come flying your way, no matter what information it is, us being intrinsically tied to the inside of this case, we can tell you that this is exactly what you would. It's vanilla, all right. It's not vanilla with swirls. It's not vanilla with nuts and cherries and caramel, and no, it's vanilla, all right? They needed to lock up some people for political purposes. This was the best they could do. They put together a bunch of falsified evidence, and we hope that the jury, and we would ask that all of you men and women of prayer, that you would pray that God would be inside of that courtroom, no matter what anybody thought or felt about it, that he would take over the inside of that courtroom, the jury, the judge, the prosecutor, the defense, the witnesses, everybody, so that no matter what, the truth comes out, that the truth comes out, that the jury can see it, that everybody sees it, because like I said, this is vanilla. It is exactly what you think it is. They took their words and they locked them up for political purposes.
Yep. I think Jeremy got frozen there. Jeremy's frozen, so they locked him up for political purposes. Essentially, the thing is, they're going to lock us all up, regardless of what we say. So at one time, it was just they were looking for overtly violent posts on Facebook. Then it's going to be looking for overtly borderline violent posts on Facebook. Then it's going to be borderline violent using quotes from the founding fathers or quoting the Constitution. And then it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. If we don't stop this now, speaking we the people is going to be a criminal offense. They do not want us to have our rights, and they understand that America is different because we aren't a charter. We have a constitution, whereas Australia doesn't even have a charter. Canada does have a charter of rights, but what a charter means is essentially they can change the rules whenever they want. But we have a constitution that lays out a Bill of Rights that is much, much, much harder to get past. And so they've been working at this a long time. And I would encourage everybody who has a chance, go to Hillsdale College, take the Constitution 101 course. It's free. You can take it more than one time. It's going to teach you a lot about how we got to where we are. And we need our patriots to be as informed, as educated as possible, because they are going to try to make us all into criminals. It doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter what we do. And that's why we have to resist this. We have to play the same game they are willing to play. The only thing is they're willing to offer their guys protection on the street. You look at Antifa and BLM, they did the violence because they knew that they were going to get protection. We know that we aren't going to get protection, so we have to play a different game. And yet, even though we play the game of peaceful, nonviolent resistance, we are still being called terrorists. We are still being entrapped. We are still being misrepresented. We are still being lied about. And that's why we need people like Steve Bannon. We need people like Julie Kelly. We need people like Revolver News and Darren Beatty. We need InfoWars. We need whoever, Timcast, whoever, Salty Cracker. Everybody needs to see that we are we're telling the truth about what's actually happening to our guys in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. And on this channel, that video that flies right in the face of the FBI narrative that is from the meeting June 6th in Dublin, you have to figure that was an internal video. That was actually just meant for one guy originally asked me if he could record me talking. And I said, yeah, that's fine. And then him and Stephen Robeson both were recording. And he was going to take it, not Steve Robeson, but the other gentleman was going to take it back to his guys in his state. So this was just going to be an internal video, right? No one really was going to see it except for like militia leadership and possibly militia, and that's it. I mean, that's it. So this is the genuine article of an internal video of what it is to be at a militia meeting and what's discussed, or a patriot militia meeting, whatever. And they will not give it the time of day because it flies directly in the face of all of the allocated funding that the nation's attorney general, the nation's president, the nation's vice president, the nation's chief of staff for the military, all have been, talking about the number one threat is, domestic terrorist white supremacy. And the only white supremacists that we can find in any bulk are FBI agents that call themselves Patriot Front. So all of their narrative is garbage. That's why the DHS let out that bulletin, because they have to fight the information war. And now they're going directly after the narrative as a crime, that you can't say anything against your government, even though this used to be America. You can't speak out against government, not government. The whole reason for freedom of speech is to speak out. and say
against
things
government.
that's unpopular. It's for unpopular speech. If it was popular, you wouldn't need it to be protected by a right.
Yeah.
But it was to speak out against government. It was to speak out against atrocities. It was to speak out and speak for the moral civil standard. And it be damned any moral civil standard as far as these folks are concerned. If they deem it unpopular or unsafe speech, then that's anti-government. That goes against a governmental narrative of equity. You know, I don't know if you guys are against paying reparations, right? But you're paying reparations. And what happened was they took all of taxpayer funding. So black folks are also paying reparations, and through the what Biden and Harris passed, the funding for businesses that are only black owned, only black or minority owned, is there for them to go ahead and rebuild their businesses. Now, if you're white, you do not get any of this funding. You get none. Zip, zilch, zero. Black people are paying the tax. White people are paying the tax. Everybody's paying the tax. But the reparations went through and was passed. So you've been paying that for about, I want to say 9 months now, 9 or 10 months. And this shows you that if you don't think it's true, look it up. And this is specifically for businesses that were tore up during the rioting for BLM and Antifa. Again, only minority owned businesses. That's it. They're the only ones that can get this money, and it's through reparations. It's listed as reparations. Not kidding.
So also, I want
when you have a government that's willing to divide you that way and give protected classes and things like this, that right there should have been, you know, the largest flag that said, wait a minute, they're trying to divide us. But now through speech, through narrative, they can arrest you. They have to attack the narrative because the narrative is the source of power, and that they know they're losing, that they've lost all their media. So now with the bulk of their media influence gone, they know that other people are out there, that everyone out there is having other conversations without them. So now you have to make that speech illegal. And there's enough people here, they believe, that are operating through fear that they can get them to shut up. And that's the basis for it. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. I kind of lost my point, but it's fine. So essentially they put us in a position where we can't do anything. We can't do they don't want us to do anything. Everything that we do, anything that we do, if it's peaceful non-resist or nonviolent resistance, they're going to outlaw us. If we speak, they're going to outlaw us. If we say to each other, hey, we need to arrest these tyrants, okay, you know, even if it's hypothetical, they're going to arrest us. They're looking to put us in a gulag, period. End of story. They want us arrested. They want us gone. They do not want us in the way. And that's why we have to take this so much more serious, guys. Like,
yeah.
And it's not just it's not just about getting involved in government. It's also about getting involved in your community, meeting your neighbors, knowing your neighbors, talking to your neighbors, you know, and maybe there's some unpleasant neighbors. You don't have to, okay, if they don't want to talk to you, don't talk to them. But you have to talk to your neighbors and say, you know, how are you feeling? What are you feeling about what's going on? Look at all this. Look at all the shortages on the store shelves. Look at all the things that we're being put through. This is unjust. This is unfair. And we need to and we need to support channels like this and channels that are willing to really, really, really tell the truth. Because there's a lot of people that are willing to tell the truth, but only up into a point, and that's called the limited hangout. And the feds know how to make limited hangouts where they give you just enough truth to satisfy you, but not enough truth to make a difference. We are the guys that are giving you all the truth. Every truth that we know, we are spewing it out of us and trying to give it to you so that you can fight back. And that they don't like. They don't like people crossing the lines. They do not like people crossing their path and saying anything they want. So we need people to share this and share this message, share this channel, and really, really get behind us so that we can build something for the Patriots to fight back.
If you don't think that they're coming for the militia to make the militia a domestic terrorism charge, then parallel that to what we're saying now. Look at what they're doing. They're straight coming at you through your Department of Homeland Security saying that your speech, if you speak out against government, if they say that your narrative is false, misleading, then that is a crime, and they will make you a federalized citizen. Think about that for just a moment. Really put some thought into that, man, because the implication here, it substantiates the claims of the patriot, right? Our land is the land that is infamously and historically known as the originator of these freedoms, put in the form of a constitution that the first 10 listed were the Bill of Rights. You know, this was a crazy, unique idea, and then it ended up setting the tone for the world, where you have European constitutions and bills of rights, you know, and not all of them are 10. Some of them are 16. Some of them are 24. Some of them are 8, you know, and this is what these societies thought were tailor-made, you know, for them, what was going to work for them. And they put it together based off of the construction of what we put in place. Our country set the tone for. And they are blatantly ignoring them. They don't care. Look at the charges in the Michigan case. The charges are enough to show you they are ignoring militia. They're ignoring the fact that it's a constitutional right. And they're using militia activity as terrorist activity. It's right in front of you. This isn't a stretch to believe this. These guys are actually militia doing militia training, and they are faced with terrorism charges. So they're showing you the betrayal. And then the DHS throws it right in your face and says that your speech is illegal because you said government was bad. You know, let me make this perfectly clear. Government is bad. Government in 2022 in America and most countries are dead set on a globalist agenda that's pissing off every single person of all of those nations. It's happening right in front of everybody's face. They're doing mandates that everybody knows make no sense. They've harmed populations. They've destroyed over 30 or 40% of private and small business, or 46% of small businesses in America. I mean, they've centralized wealth into very large corporations. You couldn't go into the mom and pop, but Walmart was open while everything else was closed. And the police were waiting for you to go to a mom and pop. Want to know why? Because the American police betrayed you. Want to know why things work in Canada? Because when they went up there, they saw the truckers were taking care of the local homeless population. And then they started a local program called Adopt a Trucker and actually brought truckers into their homes with their families. That will not work in America as much as you want it to. Our underhanded society will have people robbed, raped, killed, and every damn thing else. They're not even going to attempt it here, right? The Canadian culture is very different even today. So that works for them. That will not work here. There's no practical application to do that here. Sorry, doesn't exist. When the CIA can put heroin in every single small town, then every single part of your country has been touched. All of them have been tainted. And you can't ask for that same type of Canadian decency in a place that's been ravaged as the United States has, where our culture has been so thoroughly permeated with counterculture that's evil. You're not going to be able to ask that of us. The tow truck drivers were told to go tow these trucks in Canada at the convoy. So the tow truck drivers drove up to the convoy, and then they parked and they joined the convoy. If you ask a United States tow truck driver to go and tow these trucks, you're going to find enough of them to tow those trucks. They're going to tow them. They're going to make that money, and they're going to sleep well tonight. It's not going to bother them in the slightest. It will not work, you know. And furthermore, the convoy is hurting the supply lines that are already seemingly damn near crippled. So if you support the convoy, then know that you support shutting everything down. I mean, just, you're going to be hungry. All of us are going to be hungry. And, you know, that's fine. Maybe we need to be. But understand that that's what you're doing. And the elitists are then going to be able to turn right around and say, well, it was the truckers that did it. and all of these people that supported them. We told you that they were terrorists. We told you that they were no good. What do you say? You know, are you going to be terribly upset if we just go and lock them all up? And in today's society in America, you have enough people that are going to say, lock each and every last damn one of them up. They're probably not vaccinated anyway. Get them the hell out of here. And you know that I'm right.
They want to do the same thing that the Germans did. When talking about the Jews, they said that they were a health risk, a health hazard. You know, they're just trying to make us othered. And we're at a we're far deeper than we even know into this chain of events that always in human history has led to mass genocide and very bad suffering. And we're not going to get over this unless we rediscover what has made us an American and what has made America. And I want to play the video from the Dublin meeting where Jeremy's talking, because it's very important that this video gets out, because this wasn't something that was recorded. You know, it wasn't recorded with the understanding that, hey, there's feds there. Nobody knew there were feds there. Nobody knew that things were going to go this way. But yet this video was recorded nonetheless. So regardless of people saying, oh, well, you know, that's only part of the story, it's only part of the meeting. Well, yeah, it's only part of the meeting, but we don't have any other recordings from the meeting. So we have to go off this. I mean, and any other news outlet would say, okay, if this is the only video we have, then we have to go off this video as proof that this is what the meeting was about. Because
not at all.
The feds
that's illogical.
What was that?
You know, they would know. You would hope that people would know better than that. So this is 7.5 minutes of a meeting, right? And this is supposed to be this is what the FBI says is the meeting where the entire plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer was started, right? Well, if that's actually the case, I was at that meeting. That means I'm part of that. Why am I not locked up if I was plotting to kidnap the man face in Michigan, the Michigan man face, right? If I was part of that, why am I not locked up? Well, I don't know. Is it because you lied? Is it because 96% of your evidence doesn't even come from Dublin, Ohio, June 6th meeting that day that you said is the plot, where the plot started? Is it because they've lied about this from the beginning to the end? Absolutely. Absolutely, they have. They overplayed their hand. It makes no sense that I would be at that meeting and not locked up unless I was a freaking snitch, unless I was a confidential informant. And with the trial coming around in 29 days, a lot of people are going to be surprised as to who the confidential informants are, because we always have them in the chat. You know, we've got them on our social media. These folks are going to be very surprised as to who it is the FBI has been trying to intimidate to, and then listed them whether they wanted to be or not. In a lot of cases, some of them they were you know, confidential informants outright, but a lot of them they listed them as such and said basically like, you're going to testify for us or we're going to, you know, give you a bunch of time.
Yep.
You know, where they've intimidated a bunch of people.
And I want to say to those people, look, they might say that, but who has the real power? If you come out and you speak the truth, because the only way the feds can have their way with you is if you do not speak the truth. If you suffer in silence, you are essentially sealing your own fate, and you are going to have to obey them. Speak out, fight back, fight them. Say, okay, you want to say, oh, you're going to make my life hard if I don't testify to the fake facts that you want me to testify to. Oh, okay, well, I'm going to bring that on to a show like the Freeman Report. I'm going to bring that on a show like Timcast or wherever you can get some time. Let people know, look, they threatened me. I didn't want to do any of this. They're threatening me to test, or else they're going to take away my kids. They're going to take away my life. They're going to put me in jail. You know, so I think we need to just stop suffering in silence, and we need to really, really, really be courageous and be devoted to our country. Because if we lose this, it's not just us. It's not just us. It is our children, our children's children. They will grow up not knowing a world where they don't have to put a mask on. They will grow up not knowing a world where they don't have to be forced to take a vaccine. They will grow up not knowing a world where they can own property. They will not know a world where they can hunt their own food, make their own mistakes, fix their own mistakes. They will have a world where they don't have any freedom at all. So if we don't stand up, if we don't make the sacrifice, and I know it's hard, I know it's scary, and I know it's hard, but if we don't do it, nobody is going to do it. Nobody's coming for us. Nobody's going to help us. They are going to destroy us if we do not stand up. So I'm going to put on the video of Jeremy Deeter at the Dublin, Ohio meeting. I was going to try to do the Freedom Convoy press conference as well, but we might not have time for that. We're trying to keep it down to 2 hours. So first we're going to start with this, with Jeremy Deeter at the Dublin meeting, and then we're going to go from there and see if we have time. So here we go with the Dublin meeting.
To do what? Go back in our communities and do what?
This may be our first and greatest initiative. Our lands need healed, and there's nobody coming to heal them. It is the responsibility of the Americans to heal these lands. There's no one coming to save us. There's nobody coming to do this for us. And we've been pitted against each other. We can sit here and pretend like this isn't the case, but racism is alive and well in our country because it was handed to us. It was forced down our throats. And so now this becomes the way that we deduce and the way that we give reason and logic, and all of that fundamental premise is a way that insane people reason rightly from the wrong means entirely. It's the wrong conversation. The Americans haven't had a chance to have a conversation, but if they did, if it was our conversation and it was honest, we would go to the poorest people, we would go to the richest people, we would go to black neighborhoods, we would go to white neighborhoods, we would go to women, we would go to Hispanic, Latino. We would reach out to every single one of our countrymen and women because we understand what it is we've lost and what we stand to lose yet, which would be the rest of our nation. And we tell them, I realize that we've been divided against each other, that hatred has gotten a hold of both of our people, that it's in America, that you drink it, that you eat it, that you breathe it, that you sleep it, that you wake with it. And our effort is to take that away. That all of the racist ideology that has been given us by corporate-sponsored governance, because these people have the biggest interest in making sure that we hate each other. And it's very, very well placed. They used the worst parts of us that all of us have. And then they gave us fear. And then they wouldn't stop. And they wouldn't stop. And they wouldn't stop. And here we are today. But beyond all of that and above that, we still sit here today with not just olive branches that we're trying to extend, and not just broken hearts, but with a yearning and a sense of urgency that we're not sure this nation has felt before. And we recognize it in our countrymen and women, no matter their color, no matter their age, no matter their sex. If you're here, if you're an American, if you see what's happening, you're not alone. We're with you. But the media and everybody has made sure they've done an incredible job to keep us apart. They have us hating each other. They have us harming ourselves. We are here to put an end to all of that. Stop that. All of the messages that are preaching hate and division. Anybody that wants you to hate yourself or somebody else is your enemy. Period. We are not here for that. That is not what we want. What we want is for each and every one of our countrymen and women to realize that the militia and the patriots that you were told were a bunch of racists. That is not true. It was a tool to divide you against us. We are not racist. We are not hateful people. We want to stand with all of you, with each and every one of you. And we'll absolutely recognize our enemies as they come, no matter what shade or form they come in. But most everybody here of our countrymen and women are our friends and allies, our neighbors. These are the people that we share the same space with regardless. And we collectively stand to lose everything, all of us. We're not unrealistic, right? We have been harmed against each other. So in that recognition, we're not asking for everybody to be friends and sing Kumbaya. What we're asking is that if you have people here that you love, if you have something or someone worth fighting for, then you have people to stand with you to help you. And we come in every shade. We come in every single demographic. And we've been told that we're racist, that if you're a white militia, gun-toting, camouflage-wearing, patriot, then you're racist. That is not true. That is not true. And forget all of the messages that you've heard. Forget every single person or every single time that you've heard that it's been promoted on the television or the radio. It isn't true. We desperately want and need everyone to stand with us, or we will all lose together. Every single one of us. Now, this is our olive branch that we're extending, that we need you, that this has to happen. That when everybody talks about government, they talk about how powerful they are, but I promise you, their nightmares are made out of the day that we stand together, because they know that they stand to lose everything. All of their lies, all of their deceptions, it all comes to an end immediately. And we start to get everything we want. And at the very least, we wake up in a nation the next day that does not see that same tension that the government gave us the day before. That if we're going to hate each other, if we're going to love each other, we get to do so honestly by our own merits and our own interactions. That if we're going to come together, then we do so with the understanding that this isn't going to be a bunch of people who have known each other forever coming together. We have to recognize this is for one purpose, for all of us to be free. Forget what you've been told. Forget what you heard. It is not true. We need you. We want you to stand with us. This has to be the case, or all of us lose. It's going to take a little bit of courage. It's going to take some bravery for you to stand with us. If you're a black person and you've been told that all of the white people that call themselves patriots are racists, then we are those patriots they're talking about, and we are not racist, and we are not hateful people. They've done that to divide all of us against each other. So we're saying, come stand with us, please, or allow us to come stand with you, please, on whatever terms that we can do this. Look at what we've lost and think about what we stand to lose. Let it circulate however it does inside of you, but please consider it. Please give it an honest consideration, because this nation, collectively, its heart is broken. And none of us want this. And we want to get it back into the hands of the common man and woman. And the common man and woman, their hands come in every single shade. Every single shade. That's what we need. That's what we want. Thank you.
All right. I mean, that's a speech from Jeremy Deeter at the first meeting where they initially started the investigation. They said that's where the plan to kidnap Whitmer was first formed, and I don't see that. And though that's just a clip, it just doesn't seem like that all of a sudden that narrative would turn into, oh, let's kidnap the governor violently. It just doesn't seem like that would happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, it tells you, that we were, really seriously trying to organize, and we were looking at our situation with the cities being torn up, and, our thinking was to just go head on, against their narrative of racism. And so that's what we were discussing in that moment. And of course, we discussed a lot of things. many things. We had conversations, outside and down by the pool, and it was very informal, where we were just talking, and the actual meeting only took place, I think it was, I don't know, 2 hours that we were sitting in there, something like that. And that was it. I mean, and we weren't plotting to kidnap anybody. We weren't, thinking about the Michigan man face. They come out with these charges, and it was just really something to read that. Yeah, as an activist and as a speaker, I speak to the effect of a betrayal that I feel like we all can see right in front of us. But to be so closely tied to what it is that I talk about, to be, just a small cog in this wheel is so strange. It's so surreal, even though this is what I talk about. This is the exact thing that I talk about. I recognize the awkwardness of this position and how it makes me feel. So when I talk to other people about being a witness for the defense, I'm not coming from a place that's like, oh, this is all normal. I'm coming from a place that says, whether you're subpoenaed by the defense or prosecution, it doesn't matter. It just means that you've been brought up, that you have part in to do with this, whether you had a conversation with one of the defendants at some point in time or whatever it is. And that's what we need to do as patriots. This may be the biggest thing that we're ever called to do for, the same for the witnesses for the Bundy trial and things like that. There weren't many people that were not cops that were willing to testify for the defense, because it was a bunch of cops, and then the people that weren't cops were scared. They were scared to testify, because all of this seems surreal. And I would implore, I know many of you that did have conversations with Stephen Robeson, Barry Croft, other people associated with the case, Adam Fox, whoever. And we need you guys to come forward. We need you in this case to not go through, for them to not be found guilty, so that militia can stay as a constitutional right, so that they can't then in turn use it against the January 6th people as court precedents being set, so that our children can be in a militia and protect this nation. This may be the only time that we're called to do something. This may be the biggest thing we're ever called to do. But if you knew any of these guys at any time, look at what they've done to Mike McDonald. They've treated him, one of the guys associated to this case, they've raided him twice, found nothing both times, sent Children Protective Services to then further harass him, giving him charges that they give to mobsters, that they give to high profile, rich people, and they gave it to a regular dude. IRS, evading IRS, paying taxes, right? This is a senator's charge. This is a congresswoman's charge, right? It's a CEO of a Fortune 500's charge. This is a regular dude who's facing these charges. And that's because they were humiliated after raiding his house and finding nothing, and finding that he wasn't part of things. They've harassed him, and that's how that looks. That's how that seems. And they're doing this to Americans everywhere. Another person that gets on here and listens is Tracy. She's been raided, and because of January 6th, and just because she was there, not in the building, just in DC. And they're doing this to patriots everywhere, and we know why. I say, before we get off here tonight, hold events and do it purposefully to bring patriots together from different patriot groups, but hold big signs and banners that say militia, sign up now.
Yep.
Letting people know that you are the militia, that they can sign up now to be, either in the militia or vetted to be in the militia, depending on how you run yours. and be loud and proud. This is the time. This is the time right now. You throw it in their face and you show them we are patriots. There's nothing you can do. We will speak out against governance every single time it's a criminal body like you are. And, again, be loud and proud. Be loud and proud. This is the time to do so.
And we need
You
groups.
do not want to live with the regret of doing nothing.
We need broadcasts like Timcast. We need broadcasts like some of the moderate broadcasts. I think of Timcast first and foremost because they're so big. Like, stand with the militia. Like, it's okay to stand with the militia. Sign up for your militia, but and do events where you say, here's a sign up for the militia, but do not advocate anything violent. When you have classes, when you hold trainings, do not discuss anything violent. Just teach the basics. And there's nothing they can do. But the thing is, we also need people like Timcast, people like American Greatness, people like Joe Rogan, people like InfoWars, all of them to get behind us. They got behind Rhodes, and he ended up being a traitor. And yet they will not answer our texts. They will not answer our emails. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so we're going to have to wrap this up we have about 10 minutes to wrap this up. Jeremy, I'm going to give you the floor to wrap this up and close this out.
All right. I appreciate it. Something that's been talked about recently and something that I want you guys to ask yourselves tonight is, are the powers that be making peaceful revolution impossible? And this was something that the Patriots were getting together and meeting about was, are they robbing us of all of our avenues to do this peacefully? And if not, what avenues can we come up with? Hence the constitutional school, the remonstrance filing, which is a redress of grievance, trying to get constitutional sheriffs to arrest the governor, doing all of the peaceful things. And that was a big motivator and in having the meeting. So ask yourself tonight, with what the Department of Homeland Security released, their national security, national terrorism advisory system bulletin, remaining at a heightened threat environment level because of false or misleading narratives introduced or amplified by domestic threat actors. This language is meant to put you in prison because you're a patriot. What will you do about it? There is no one else coming to get you and save you. And I believe you're born with a purpose to stop all of this. What do you believe? Let us know. We thank you for supporting us. We thank you for being part of this. Thank you for supporting Patriot Shit Outfitters. And hopefully you guys will see us get bigger and better at this. So thank you.
And I want to say before we close out, I want to thank everybody for coming on. I want to thank everybody for commenting. We are the last defense for this country. You guys are the last defense. Share this out, please. Tell people, like, subscribe, hit all notifications. We need this message to get out. So, you guys are the greatest. I know I see you every single week. Every time we have a broadcast, you guys are here. Thank you for being such ardent patriots. We are going to win this thing. We are going to win this thing. We just have to be vigilant. We just have to be perseverant. We just have to be able to stand strong against the Fed narrative, against the federal government's narrative that wants to take us down for no reason other than we advocate for the original Constitution that they have nullified by their actions. So I want to say, God bless everybody. Thank you for being here. God lead, guide, and direct everybody who is in the chat, and make it so that they are the most effective they can possibly be. Thank God for this day and all the days hereafter. Amen. And have a great night.